Hey everyone, welcome to PhoneUX. So on this video I'm going to be comparing the Z Fold 5 with the Pixel Fold. I'm going to go over some of my experiences, and at the end of this video I'll let you know which one I would choose if I had to pick one. So starting with the appearance, we see that both companies went with their signature styles. So based on the outside, I really can't choose a favorite, but just like people, the inside is what matters. So even from the point of opening both of them, the Samsung has a better experience of opening it. And with the Pixel Fold, you basically have to apply the people's elbow to get it to fold flat. And then also, once you're using it, even though the bezels don't really bother me when I'm using them, when I'm using the Pixel Fold, when I compare it to the Samsung is basically all screen, and it's a lot nicer. It looks more modern, and is basically delivering the same screen size in a much smaller package when you compare them side by side. So once we take the main screens into account, I do prefer Samsung's version of it. Moving on to the build quality, as soon as I picked both of these phones up, I could instantly tell that they're made of high quality materials. And even the hinges are made really well. Neither of them have any play, and it seems like they were made with really tight tolerances. The only knock that I would really give the Pixel Fold is that it requires some extra force to make it open flat. Based on a lot of the information that I've seen out there, I kind of want to go over the different philosophies that the two companies have. So Samsung went with a design where they created a large phone that's meant to be used open all the time, and they basically just made a cover display for their phone. While Google went with a regular size phone, which is really meant to be used like this probably most of the time, and then only opened to the larger screen whenever you want or need to use it. The only times I really opened it are when I was home and wanted to watch the videos on the larger screen, or if I was multitasking, which in my case is usually for budgeting. For the most part, I just wouldn't feel the need to open it, and I'll be perfectly happy using the main front screen here. However, some of the benefits of Samsung's design is that, so the main one that comes to mind is that with this phone, I can hold it in a way that feels super secure, that I really can't hold any other phone like this. But really, you're gonna wanna possibly open it most of the time when you're using it. So now let's move on to my experiences with the cover screen. So with Google, you do get this great aspect ratio, which is pretty close to perfect. It's probably the best ratio for watching videos, and it's more than a good enough ratio for all the apps that I've used. So from my experience, I haven't had any app that doesn't fit in it properly, and so it's a great overall experience, especially when you compare it to the cover screen of the Samsung. So with Samsung, they did improve on it quite a bit from the Z Fold 3 that I used, in which the apps, because they made it a little bit wider because of the thinner bezels. And I did notice that the case for my Z Fold 3 didn't fit on my Z Fold 5 because the case was too long. So it looks like they shortened it, and therefore probably reduced that really tall aspect ratio a bit. And that kind of helped the apps fit a little bit better. So even though it's not perfect, it's still been an improvement. And again, in my opinion, this is really meant as a cover display more than actually using it as your main screen. So moving on to the main screen, or the inner screen of these phones, the aspect ratios, or the screen real estate, is basically exactly the same, and even the aspect ratios are pretty close, as soon as you flip them around. So in that manner, they offer pretty much a very similar experience. However, the difference comes in the software, and this is where it shows that Samsung really is the veteran of this type of phone. So with Pixel Fold, you do have some limitations of basically only being able to split screen 2 apps at a time. That's the max you can really have while having basically 2 full screen experiences. However, with Samsung, they do let you have up to 4, I think it is. But the most I really use is 2 split screen and then a floating window, and for on the messaging app, whichever one I'm messaging. And that it provides more options. You can use it basically how you want. The other thing that Samsung does offer is the different home screen. And even though you could kind of modify or set up your Pixel home screens, where on the left side you can have the ones you would use on the outside screen, and on the right side you can have the ones that you would use on the larger screen. It's not customizable to how you would use each screen per se. So with Samsung, I can have a much cleaner cover display with my messaging and calling apps in the bottom. And then on the main screen, I will have my widgets, multiple widgets, stackable widgets with all my favorite apps in the bottom. And that becomes the taskbar once you're in an app. So you do have more options, and you're basically setting up two different uses for your phone, which I really do appreciate Samsung having. Also, Samsung went ahead and upgraded their main screen's brightness to 1750 nits, which is actually a really big deal because I did have that one experience with the Pixel Fold where I was watching a video, but I was in direct sunlight, and I had to constantly try to find a comfortable way of viewing it because the sunlight was kind of making it too dim to see. So the max brightness on the Pixel Fold really isn't enough to enjoy videos. It is usable, but it's not going to be as good an experience as Samsung's 1750 nits. So to quickly cover the battery and the battery life, Samsung still has a smaller battery than Pixel Folds, but the Pixel Fold is lasting a little bit less for me. I don't have an exact screen on time because I don't think it was capturing that time correctly when I was using the camera. But for example, with Samsung, I've used it for about 12 hours. I'm at 34%, and the screen on time is 6 hours. So that screen on time seems pretty good. I would even consider that good for a standard phone. And that was all with mobile network, by the way. But I don't feel like I'm getting that type of battery life on the Pixel Fold. I will say it's not that much different, but it's a little bit less. The chip performance on the other hand is a bigger difference. So the Pixel Fold has actually stopped me from completing tasks twice because it was too hot. So one of them was wireless charging. It didn't want to start charging until the phone cooled off a little bit. Honestly, to the touch, it didn't feel all that hot, but apparently it didn't like whatever temperature it was at. And then the other time was when I was trying to upload photos to Google Photos to have it backed up. It actually paused the uploading because it says the phone was too hot. However, with the Samsung, it hasn't had any of these issues. There are times when it does get warm, like when I'm doing a few things, especially on mobile data. Just like any phone, it gets a little warm, but it doesn't get like burning hot or anything, and it's never stopped me from doing anything. And really, in all my history of using Samsung, I've never been stopped. I've never been told that I couldn't do something by the phone because it was too hot. So that's definitely something that I prefer Samsung over, whether it does get as hot or not, that really doesn't matter to me. I don't care if the phone gets hot. What matters to me is that Samsung hasn't stopped me from completing any task that I wanted to do. Pixel Fold has already done it twice to me in the 2 months that I've had it. And then that brings me on to the charging. Neither of these phones are where I believe they should be, especially for the price that we're paying for them. So these are $1,800 to $2,000 phones, depending on how much storage you get. And they're charging at 25 or 30 watts. I've seen it where other companies have like spread the charging between two separate batteries to basically speed it up or double the speed of the charging. And both of these phones have two batteries. So why aren't they charging at 50 watts? Just doubling the 25 watts, 25 to each battery. Why isn't it charging at 50 watts? Like, I just don't get it. And I think Pixel is overdoing their adaptive charging, whatever they call it, because on the same trip, I was just waiting to charge it in the morning because I was charging other things throughout the night, and then in the morning I would have an hour and a half or almost 2 hours to before we left for the day. And so I ended up, after the second day, I ended up just charging this one overnight because it was just too slow. With about, I don't know if it was exactly an hour and a half that I charged it for, but it was definitely over an hour. And this phone still would not be full or anywhere near full. I think it was in the 70s, mid to low 70s. So I would have to charge it in the car to wherever I was going. And that's just annoying. I mean, Samsung is saying 25 watts, but I'm pretty sure it charges faster than what the Pixel Fold charges, which I think they say 30. Either way, neither one is in a good, is charging at a good rate, and they really need to be sped up, especially for the price that we're paying. So moving on to probably another controversial part of the phones is the camera systems. And I gotta say, I'm not disappointed with either one. I think they're both good. So they're probably not the, they're not the flagship camera sensors that each company has, but they're not too far off. So with Samsung, obviously the best camera sensors are in the S23 Ultra, but the 50 megapixels that's being used on the Samsung is from the S23 regular and Plus phones. So those are still flagships. It's just not their best camera sensors. So technically this is still a flagship camera, and this one on the other hand is not, but Google still does their thing and always comes out good. So I'm not going to argue with that either. The differences really come in the optimization. They both have their strengths and weaknesses. So by Samsung having the 3X, their main sensor has to cover less of a zoom in distance before switching over. So the images are probably going to be clear up to a certain point. Whereas Google, even though they do have the best software for digitally zooming in with a sensor, they still have to go all the way to 5X before it can switch. So the way I would put it is, from 1 to 2.9, they're very comparable, the main sensors. And then from 3 to 4.9, Samsung is probably going to have the clearer pictures, or definitely going to have the clearer pictures once you start getting a bit further away from the 1 mark. But yeah, from 3 to 4.9, I would say Samsung's going to have the clearer pictures. And then obviously after 5X, Google's going to run away with it by a lot. So in terms of which camera I prefer, I do prefer the setup for Pixel Fold because I could kind of work with and I did a lot. I took like 1,500 photos with this thing. And I was able to work with the gap there. I would really max out the main sensor. I would max it out at 3X. I wouldn't pass 3X at all because you just really start getting a lot of pixelation. So I was able to take a lot of good photos between 1 and 2X, and then I will use the 5X to zoom in. So I will miss out a little bit, but I was definitely able to work with it and definitely reach out a lot further with the 5X. Whereas I know with the 3X, I would have missed out on a lot of close-ups that I was able to take with the 5X. Especially with wild animals that you can't get too close. You really want to be able to zoom in as much as possible, so it looks like you're a lot closer to the animal than you really are. So my overall experience with the Pixel Fold has been pretty enjoyable. The aspect ratio on the front screen makes it really great to use every day. And then when you open it, I love being able to watch my videos on landscape view while I'm charging wirelessly. I'm also really happy with the way the photos came out with the phone, and I'm also happy. I also do really like Google's editing software, or their Google Photos editing software. I think does a really great job, and they have really good tools. The notable drawbacks I would say are the overheating being the main one. Being stopped from completing something because it's too hot is definitely a no-no. And also the screen brightness. So even though it is usable outside, you can't see what you're doing. It's just not as clear as the Samsung is. My experience with the Z Fold 5 has actually been pretty nice as well. I really do enjoy the main screen on this phone and the software that Samsung has really developed with it. Also, the photos do come out pretty nice with this phone as well. So no complaints about that either. I would like to be able to zoom further, but that's just a preference, not really something that's wrong with the phone. The drawbacks I would say for the Z Fold 5 is the slightly awkward cover screen and the fact that I can't comfortably charge my phone wirelessly while I'm watching a video on landscape. So in a scenario where I had to choose one of these for the rest of the year and I was not able to use any other phone whatsoever, I would have to go with the Samsung Z Fold 5. And the reason is simple. Pixel has overheated on me twice, and I just can't have that on a phone that I use every day. I can't have it not work properly just because it's too hot. So Samsung has been very reliable in that sense, and even their software has had very few bugs that I'm aware of. So Samsung for me is definitely the correct choice if I had to choose between these two phones. The Pixel Fold, even though it has a way more useful outside screen and I would say overall a better camera array, I just don't think it's the better phone. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.